It was just like a normal day, mundane if anything. He gave me a kiss before he left, and then I never saw him again.
You might go out, on a Friday night, something like that, and you can't stand this guy, whatever. But when you're working with him, you've got to be something really, really close, and, part of a team. So when you lose that member of a team, it's like a brick being taken out of a wall. You feel the pain.
The worst part was not knowing. It was reported there'd been an accident and nobody could get out. They were there for quite a while, but we knew they were still alive underground, and I kept thinking, it'll be okay, he will be okay. But it wasn't.
This UK industry produces a third of Britain's electricity and produces 18 million tonnes of fuel each year. We're heavily reliant on it, yet most people don't even know we still mine coal in Britain. That is, until a tragedy happens.
All 4 coal miners who were caught in an accident in a South Wales colliery have been found dead.
Last September, 4 men died at the Gleeson coal mine in South Wales. Whilst attempting to extract the coal, the mine flooded, trapping the 4 men underground.
A miner who was caught in a roof fall this afternoon in a pit in West Yorkshire has been found dead.
In the same month, another miner died in Yorkshire after part of the roof collapsed at Kellingley Colliery. Kellingley has also seen 3 people die in as many years. Before Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister and changed the face of the industry forever, coal mining was a thriving trade. Today, it's a shadow of its former self. Before 1984, there were 170 collieries in Britain, employing more than 190,000 people. Over time, annual production has fallen from more than 130 million tonnes in 1980 to just 17.9 million today. And since 2008, the UK industry has lost around £270 million. There are now only 6 deep pits remaining in the UK, and a small number of open cast, or what are known as surface mines, in South Wales, Coventry, Yorkshire, Northumberland and Scotland. 6,000 people are still employed by this industry. As coal mining continues to suffer in this economic climate, the future is looking dark for the workers. They may not only be losing their jobs, but looking at the number of deaths since 2008, they may also be losing their lives. So how safe is this industry? Although accidents are seemingly far and few between, when they do occur, their impact is simply huge. Here in Pontardawe, the Gleeson mine is on their doorstep. It's a reminder for the families every day of how coal mining has affected their lives. So how viable is it then to keep a dying industry alive, when that industry can cause such a negative impact on the communities it's meant to support? In this documentary, we'll travel across the United Kingdom to mining communities that still exist. We'll visit miners currently working and see the impact the industry has at ground level.
It was a bad accident. Stuck with him until we got him out, but unfortunately he didn't make it.
Responsibility for health and safety is fundamentally the responsibility of our member companies. CoalPro, as a trade association, cannot intervene into that process.
And we'll ask, what is the future for coal?
We've got a lot of windmills. If they don't turn, we've got no power. Coal can switch power and all like that.
Coal is facing a crunch point. The key decisions of its future will be taken in the next 8 years.
We've also seen many disasters in the past, and frankly, I think coal mining should be ended.
What is the future for coal? Can we really continue with an industry that can cause a death a year, and that is not making enough money to keep the business alive, let alone its workers? What do you know about the UK coal mining industry?
Absolutely nothing.
I don't think they do any coal mining here. Maybe I think they do it in other countries.
I think they shut down most of it, and I don't think they're mining anymore.
I don't know anything about the UK coal mining industry. I wasn't aware of it.
I know there was a strike a number of years ago, like in the 80s.
The miners' strikes in the 80s when I was a child, and lots of people lost their jobs.
Do you know anything about it now?
No.
For many in the UK, it's a surprise mining still occurs here. But for the people of Yorkshire, mining is still a huge part of their everyday lives.
This is really all I know. You know, it defines me to a certain extent. I am a miner. I left school and went straight into the mines. I'm a fourth generation miner. My father and my grandfather and his father were miners before us. Obviously, there's always that slight conflict between safety and production. I'd like to think that safety always wins over production. Certainly that's where we're aiming. If we're not already there, that's where we're hoping to be. And everybody's singing off that hymn sheet. There isn't any pressure like there used to be in the old days where get it done, that's gone.
Our reporter Saskia spoke to Andy, an ex-miner, who told her about what his working day used to be like.
Several times I felt unsafe at work. The possibility of roof falls or inrush of waters. But it's experience, after you've been down a while, the experience of mining for long periods of time alerts you to these potential dangers, and you overcome it rather than let that overcome you. That's a
he now works in the National Mining Museum, where he showed us round.
This is the size of a typical coal face that miners used to work at. They were roughly in this area around about 36 inches. And once you got on coal face, kneeling down, that's height you had for the next 12 hours.
Oh God, it's not born to be a miner.
So would you recommend it to people looking for work now, people leaving school who say mining's a great job to go into?
Mining now, when I started, I'd have said yes to that question. I think underground mining, or deep mining as we call it, it's got absolutely no future at the moment. Yeah. I think there should have been a future for coal, but they had a shutdown programme in the early 90s. And basically because of the price, and they've imported ever since. I think we're still burning as much coal as we've ever done, but we import 90 to 95%. That's where it went wrong in the 90s.
Since 1994, when Prime Minister John Major privatised the industry, coal mines have been in the hands of private owners. The largest by far is UK Coal, and they now own 4 out of the 6 remaining deep mines in the UK. Of all the energy powered by coal in Britain, UK Coal produces around half of it. While we still have enough coal beneath us to last for the next 300 years, the future of the industry is still uncertain. With the rise of green energy, is coal becoming yesterday's news?
Over a period of time, output will probably continue slowly to decline as the best remaining reserves are extracted, bearing in mind that we've been working coal in this country already for hundreds of years. But the industry will still exist, and I expect this country to be producing coal into the 22nd century.
Coal does have the potential to be big business. Tata, an Indian steel company, are currently in the process of planning to open mines where coal is still well stocked, for example in South Wales. However, there is no doubt in some circumstances the industry is struggling. UK Coal-owned Daw Mill near Coventry, UK's biggest coal mining producer, has recently been threatened with closure. The mine, said to have resources which could last until 2028, is expected to close 14 years early, in 2014, due to its production being 175,000 tonnes behind budget. UK Coal is under intense economic pressure following the recession. Shares in the company worth £5 only 5 years ago were recently trading for 34p. UK Coal and its employees are keeping very quiet about Daw Mill.
Can't comment on Daw Mill. I don't work there, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment on Daw Mill.
We have discovered that for Daw Mill to remain open, they need to create a number of new shafts or passages to access the coal. This, along with all the new safety equipment needed, would cost somewhere around £250 million. However, UK Coal have no money and no investors. What's more, in 2006 and 2007, 3 men were killed in mining accidents at Dore Mill. UK Coal were fined £1.2 million for these safety breaches. From our own investigation into UK Coal's accounts, we found not only relatively low profits, but also low attention to safety.
So is there any evidence of health and safety improvements within this report?
Well, the latest annual report, which is for 2011, actually shows that there's about £138 million of debt, and it doesn't actually mention anywhere in the report about any health and safety improvements.
So you mentioned to me something about the insurance. Could you just expand on that, please?
Sure. Due to the high-risk nature of the industry, there is actually only limited insurance available on market for these high risks, which would otherwise be insurable in other industries. What is available actually has quite a high excess, so that puts a further strain on the finances of UK Coal.
So did you find anything going through this that indicates how much UK Coal actually spend on their health and safety?
Well, I've had a look through the report and there's actually no mention of any figure of the amount that they spent on health and safety in that year. Well, the only numbers that I actually found in the report relating to health and safety was actually to do with the fines rather than any improvements that they're doing.
So if they were proud of their health and safety record and how much they were spending on improving it, they would put it in their report?
Certainly other companies, if they spent quite a large proportion of money on health and safety measures, they would mention it in their report, yes.
So the fact that there's no mention of a value probably indicates that they're not spending enough?
It's possible. That's something you have to speak to UK Coal about.
We did ask UK Coal about this, but they were very vague in their response.
Everybody that comes on site has a full induction for the site. Any person going underground also has a full induction, also has what we call self-rescuer. All underground visitors are fully supervised. There is an extensive training course for people working underground. We carry out lots of safety observations, risk assessments, auditing of people and procedures underground, so it is a very strict safety culture.
Trevor Chalkley, currently the safety officer at Kellingley, invited us to his home to discuss the tragic death of Jerry Gibson.
The information that I got that we'd lost one of our colleagues, and the rest of the guys who were supposed to be going on the other shift, they were held back at the pit top. Most of them were stood with me and they're looking for some solace, you know, from me. They're asking me for information, things like that. As daft as it sounds, it's a time that you're actually holding their hands, you know, and together, you know, we feel the pain. Because we know these guys, we rely on each other. It's a close-knit community. You might go out, you know, on a Friday night, something like that, and you can't stand this guy, whatever. But when you're working with him, you know, you've got to be something really, really close, and, you know, part of a team. So when you lose that you know, that member of a team, it's like, you know, a brick being taken out of a wall. You feel the pain.
When miners are being killed, such as Jerry Gibson and the 4 men at Gleichen, serious questions need to be asked about how to stop this. In China, a country where life is often said to be cheap, coal mining officials managed to get their death toll down from 7,000 in 2002 to 2,500 in 2011. In Chile, a country still developing, the rescue attempt of 33 men trapped in a mine was a complete success. Astonishingly, statistics show that the ratio of men mining to the men dying in mines in Britain has not improved since 1920. With no word yet when the Gleichen report is due out, there are still many unanswered questions. The main one being, if more men were to lose their lives, who would be held responsible? We asked David from CoalPro how they intervene on matters of health and safety.
Responsibility for health and safety is fundamentally the responsibility of our member companies. CoalPro, as a trade association, cannot intervene into that process, and it would be quite wrong if we were to do so, because we would be taking or seeking to take responsibility from the management of and the men in our member companies. What we do is kind of hold the ring, whereby for a cross-cutting emerging health and safety issues, we would deal with them on an industry-wide basis, either vis-à-vis the Health and Safety Executive or government or European Commission or whatever, but we don't have any executive role in health and safety amongst our members, and that would be quite wrong if we did.
The regulator tells us that each of the mines that are being reopened are actually regulated quite heavily. Unfortunately, I don't believe that is the case, because many of these people are taking risks. They are pushing themselves further and further. And as a result of that, we have seen deaths, and no doubt we'll see deaths coming in the future again.
The HSE, or Health and Safety Executive, are meant to be the regulatory body that inspects all mines across the country. However, we have discovered that there are only 12 mine safety inspectors within the HSE. This covers all open cast mines, deep mines and drift shaft mines like Gleeson. Upon further inspection, we also found that the HSE have cut back on their regulations. For example, when roof bolts are installed, the HSE no longer visit the mines as they once did. We wanted to contact the HSE and find out why they have become so lax in their regulation. This was much harder than we thought.
So I've been on hold now for over 3 hours, and it's pretty clear the HSE don't want to talk to us.
We sent them an email instead, and after some cold responses, got sent an inadequate statement. We've told the HSE that if they won't supply us with a good answer by phone or email, we'll have to come to Sheffield to speak to their mining department. We've just stopped at these services as we were on our way to confront the HSE in person. However, they must have sensed us coming, as they've just sent us all the information we've been asking for in an email. And looking through this information, it seems that the problems lie in short-term licences. There are so few mine inspectors that by the time the mine inspectors get round to visiting the mines, the licences have already expired and the mines have shut down.
I think the difficulty is with the licensing body is that because the nature of these mines is so ad hoc, it's very difficult to know if they're going to be working for 6 weeks or 6 months. And because, again, they are springing up just as necessary or as they can do, it's very difficult for the licensing body to actually check the standards, the quality of care, the health and safety aspect, and whether or not they're actually following the letter of the law. And I think because of that, there needs to be greater investment into checking that the people who are doing this work actually are safe and not risking their lives.
People are being granted these licences to go and mine legally, but there appears to be no further checks on health and safety after these licences have been granted. Since privatisation, mining companies go by their own health and safety rules. There is no overall regulation that the companies must adhere to. They set their own rules to try and ensure health and safety in each separate mine. This means that some are going to be far less safe than others. Independent mine regulators such as CoalPro, who claim health and safety has nothing to do with them, and the HSE, who appear lax in their regulation, are doing nothing to help either. The National Union for Miners, once a great force and voice, now appears to be more of a museum than a union. Not one member of the NUM was willing to talk to us. So what can be done to stop these deaths? Mining law, which was set up in 1954, explains that mining is an individual's responsibility. It is mining law that every miner must work safely and look out for the safety of themselves and others around them.
All the mining legislation is all written in blood. You know, every accident we have, we make sure that there's something put in place so that that accident can never happen again.
The implication of what Trevor has said means that a law can only be passed once an accident has happened. But for people like Hugh, who has seen 4 men die, this simply isn't good enough.
The government isn't actually regulating this area of work at all. Unfortunately, we don't have coal companies involved in this. These are individuals, these are people who own land, people who often are farming otherwise, and these are old mines. The mine that where we saw the miners die last year was actually over 150 years old, and these are being reopened by individuals who may be just finding a few mates who've done something similar in the past and are actually going down just to get the coal out. And there's very little I think the government can do to stop that, but we should be looking at greater registration.
Not only is the HSE allowing people to go and mine without regularly checking the safety aspects, they are also allowing people back into these old, unused mines without the consideration of men's health. Patricia McNair, a doctor and journalist who has written on miners' health problems, told us about some of the often life-threatening issues workers could face.
The main problem with mining is that a lot of dust is generated with tiny particles, and those particles can be breathed in where they cause a lot of damage in the lungs. They cause irritation, inflammation, scarring and a variety of different lung diseases.
There's a lot of health problems created by mining. Myself, I've got a certain amount of industrial deafness with noise. It's noisy here, but it's much noisier in a working mine, much noisier. You use a lot of power tools, vibration white finger. You're on your knees a lot on coal face. In fact, you go on your knees and you're on your knees for up to 12 hours a day. So I've got knee problems. And a lot of miners have to work in water, so they've got arthritis or bad backs. There's even working in dark, you can get a disease called nystagmus, where you can't see properly at light. There's loads of illnesses and injuries.
If the HSE continue to grant these licences to individuals without regular safety checks, all the precautions for health that have been put into place over a number of years cannot be checked either. The equipment needed to reduce health risks, such as dust control systems and ventilation shafts, are not in place. We visited Kellingley Colliery, where 3 miners have died in the past 3 years. I went down the mine to experience for myself what working underground is really like. It's home from work we go. It's home from work we go. This is as close as we can get the camera to the shaft without the risk of an explosion. So we're going to head now and we'll see you on the other side. Hi-ho, it's home from work we go. Hi-ho, 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 I've just come back from the coal mine and it wasn't as small as I thought it was going to be, but it's definitely as hot as you would imagine. Trevor said that temperatures were probably around 37 degrees at the top of the face. The miners are down in the mines for shifts of around 8 hours, if not a bit longer, and they do this pretty much every day if they want to make big money. I found it really dark, really claustrophobic, although it was a bit bigger than I did expect. But the heat. I was only down the mine for a short while and didn't actually have to mine coal. These men face a much harsher reality down the pit.
I've seen several accidents when I've been in the mine. The worst one was at Welbeck Colliery it would be about 4 years ago now, when a friend of mine who I'd worked with for over 20 years was trapped and I was called to go to him. Didn't realise it was a friend at the time. When I got there, obviously, it was a bad accident. Stuck with him until we got him out, but unfortunately he didn't make it. So it was I stuck with him. It took us about 5 hours to actually get him out. That 5 hours I was able to stay with him and to give him morphine to and put drips in him just to keep him hydrated and keep him calm. The lad was so brave, it was unbelievable. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough for a few months. It affected the mind's morale, as you can imagine, because he was one of the personalities. He was a bit of a character, and yeah, it did knock my duck off for a while. I can remember passing messages because his wife got to the mine while she was waiting for him on the pit top. So I can remember passing messages from his wife to him and back again.
So is there a way forward for coal that doesn't involve risking life and lung down a pit? Well, there is a safer way to mine that could be the way forward for the British mining industry. This comes in the form of open cast collieries, which are far less risky than deep mines. In 2006, an open cast mine was opened at Merthyr Tydfil in Wales and has so far had no problems. The only downside is that open cast mines would leave enormous ugly scars on the landscape, which would no doubt cause huge opposition.
The real problem is that
Tony Lodge from the Centre of Policy Studies and author of The Atomic Clock met with Saskia to discuss what he thinks lies in store for coal.
In theory, coal has a great future. It is an indigenous energy asset. There are estimates that there are billions of tonnes of reserves in the country which could be accessible. The issue is, to what extent can coal be burned in new power stations in an environmentally acceptable way? We have very old power stations now still burning coal, but they are coming to the end of their lives. The future for coal is tied up with new research and development into an ability to burn the fuel cleaner. We need to develop these, or we will effectively turn our back on coal, which would be the wrong decision.
What people don't realise is that the price of other energy sources is rising, and there is not enough clean energy developed yet to take over from coal. Tony Lodge predicts that in the next 30 years, energy prices are going to become extortionate, and by that time, the coal industry in the UK will be over. The billions of tonnes of cheap coal beneath us will no longer be an option for energy.
Being a dirty industry, as I say, coal's a dirty name. You know, people don't want to be associated with coal, so, but secretly people would love to invest into us. And as I say, the problem is at this moment in time, we've got a lot of windmills. If they don't turn, we've got no power. Coal can switch power and all like that. Nuclear's ageing. Nobody seems to want to invest into the new nuclear, so we're having to shut down nuclear plants. Gas is running out, oil's running out, so you're going to be left with coal.
Britain needs coal to keep the lights on. But even if this is the case, it still doesn't answer the questions that need answering now. With the economic climate for the UK coal industry so dire, what is going to happen to the miners and their families? In the case of Kellingley, the judge ruled he couldn't award the families compensation because it would bankrupt UK coal. For the miners themselves, is it better to have no job or to be risking their lives in their current place of work? It appears the days of deep mining in the UK are coming to an end. Whether the open cast system, like the one at Merthyr Tydfil, is the way forward for energy remains to be seen. While this form of mining may be scarring the landscape, at least it's not scarring the people.
We just need to do what we can and make sure those people who choose to go down there realise what the risks are.
Coal is synonymous with Wales, and unfortunately I don't have the rose-tinted spectacles of the past. I don't think it's been a good thing for Wales.
I think there's no real future for UK coal then, it's just going to be imports forever now.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great shame.
Yes, I do, yeah.
The sadness, the effect it had on children, young people, the fact that this memorial that's here in this town centre has never been defaced. The sense of shock and disbelief that this is still happening in this area, I think touched many people's hearts.
It is near impossible to balance the problems of money and health and safety, and each seems to make the other worse. While the closure of the mines would solve the health and safety issue, it would also see around 6,000 men out of work. Even if it meant no man would ever die in a UK mine again, the total closure of collieries would leave the government, as well as the mine workers and their families, with a whole other issue to deal with. But if people are to keep going underground to make money, with individuals cutting corners, coal companies cutting back and regulation becoming unreliable, the coal mining industry in the UK cannot carry on.